Welcome back to Kingdom Builder. I'm Kelly Mead, and today we're joined by an artist who is part of our summer music sampler this year, Katy Crawford. We're so glad to have you on today's show.
I am so honored to be here and really excited to talk with you, Kelly.
For our listeners who may be unfamiliar with you, can you share a little bit about how you got started in music and who a few of your influences are?
Yeah, I come from a musical family and actually also a family of ministers. So actually my dad's a pastor. Both my grandfather and my grandmother were pastors, and going farther back, I've got a lot of ministers going on, and then a lot of music ministry as well. So I kind of grew up in it, if you will. I was forced to take piano lessons, and then later on really got into it and love it. So I think just from being in that environment for all of my life, music is just a part of who I am. And so I also started writing when I was a kid. I've always loved writing. And so kind of going into starting to get some training for my voice, really to know how to use my instrument, that kind of inspired me into becoming who I am as a singer and a songwriter, and again, tying all of that in with just worship and ministering to the Lord and to others. So that's kind of, and you asked about influences. I will say I'm a huge jazz fan, and it's really more kind of jazz standards, my favorite thing ever. And so that comes from when I started vocal training when I was a teen. My vocal coach had me really start listening to people like Ella Fitzgerald and really trying to emulate her and their styles. And that's a huge influence on who I am and what I do and what my preferences are with style.
That's awesome. Yeah, I can hear the jazz influence on your music and in your voice when you sing. So that's really cool that that's where it comes from. On your most recent EP, Dwell, that came out in June, the songs are based on the book of Psalms, which I think is really cool. I love the song Hiding Place, which is a great reminder of who God is. How did this project come together for you?
Well, in a way, this whole project started off about 5 years ago, and the Lord had me almost in a way as a mesh of a devotion type thing He wanted me to do just between me and Him, to also being almost like a writing exercise that He instigated with me doing. And He was having me read a chapter a day of the Psalms. And not just reading them, but I had to write a song from each of those chapters. And I will tell you, some of those chapters are not very happy and exciting and peaceful. They're really kind of downers, but there were times where I would try to write something and it just would not come together, but I did it. I did it out of faithfulness to the Lord. And but there were a number of songs that I was just, He was really faithful to pour out in me and to give me the right words and the sounds for it. And that's where all of these songs come from that time when the Lord was having me kind of walk through the Psalms. And so I got to meet up with Billy Smiley. He's a wonderful musician and producer in Nashville, and he loved the idea of trying to put these together into a small project, because there's actually many others that I've written and hope to continue writing. But he loved the idea, and so that's kind of how this project came together, where it was just trying to pull these different songs that were written directly from David's experience in Scripture, and trying to breathe some fresh modern life into it, and really with the purpose of trying to minister to others and kind of, again, some of those are downers. They really are. But the thing that I learned from David is that he's in really troubling times a lot, but he's always praising the Lord through it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really amazing. And that's something that I've kind of noticed when I've read through Psalms myself, is where there's so many different aspects to them, really, when you look at them, because like you said, some are down, but then there's turns around and can really lift us up too. So yeah, I think that's really, really cool how God spoke to you and had you do that, and to think that there's one for every single psalm is really awesome.
Well, I have to say I'm not quite done with them. But,
I can imagine.
But definitely, oh yeah. And I will, like I said, some of them, that was really, it was me being faithful to the Lord to write something, but definitely not something anybody wants to hear. I think he was fine with it, but
Mm-hmm.
So, and like we mentioned, the Psalms, they're kind of a little bit of everything about life, and they can also be such a comfort when we're going through difficult times. So what's something that you hope the listeners will take away from this EP when they listen?
Well, especially right now where there's so much struggle and unrest and fear in our world today, actually when we initiated this project, it was before a lot of the stuff started going down and before closing down stores and sheltering in place and all of those different things. But as that has progressed, it was such an amazing thing for me to see, like, wow, these songs I really believe are so timely for people to be able to hear. And I really, and actually when I've gone through these songs again, and looked at them to see, like, okay, what's the main message of these? A lot of them are just that same idea of, okay, things are not very good right now, but I'm going to praise you. But I'm going to see that you are my help, and you are always faithful, and you will never abandon me. And I really hope that the people that hear this will not only hear that message and take it in and recognize that God is always there, and that God will never abandon us, but also hopefully feel his spirit just kind of going through that music and just ministering to their spirits. Those are my two main hopes for this project for people.
Amen. That's really incredible. I love that. So we'd love to play a song from the EP right now, and I'd love for you to go ahead and introduce that for us.
Yes, I'm really excited. I'm so excited. Now, this EP you mentioned, it's called Dwell. So I'd love for us to get to hear the title track, which is called Dwell. This one's written from Psalm 23, and I really do want to just say a little something about it because, Psalm 23 is so well known. There's so many different hymns and songs from centuries of musicians writing versions of it. And a lot of times to me, when I've seen it or heard these songs and you think about that tradition, it's very mellow, and you think of little sheep walking by brooks of water. It's very kind of chill and sometimes a little dark in some ways. But I really wanted to make this song amped up with energy and excitement about us being able to dwell with the Lord and not fearing any evil and just hitting home that message of God is always there. And so that is what Dwell is about. And so I really hope everybody is blessed by it.
was our guest, Katy Crawford, and her song, Dwell. Before we played that, you mentioned how you felt led to make it kind of a more, not upbeat, but more positive and more, not something that we've heard a million times related to Psalm 23, because a lot of times, it can be a more somber tone that comes across from it, but I think you're absolutely right into where it really is more hopeful than a lot of people make it seem. So I really appreciate you sharing how that came to be.
Thank you. And I really, that really is what my heart is, really, to try and, because, the traditional, I love the traditional and I love the hymns and I love a lot of that, but I think that there's something needed. I think we need something fresh, and it's still the same message, but we just need to, if you hear the same thing over and over and over again, you start to not really hear it anymore. But if you hear it said in a different way, that's when it can really touch your heart. So that's my hope for that.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. As you kind of touched on, this year has been unlike any other, and there have been so many crazy things that have happened, and a lot of things have changed, and it's been quite unexpected. But is there anything coming up that you're excited about that fans can be watching for?
Yes, I know, and you're so right. Everything's so up in the air right now. All the plans that I had are a little bit in flux at the moment. But the things that I'm really excited about for this, and I really still want to go for, is that I do have a lot of international ministry that I do. I do a lot of ministry in French-speaking countries in particular. And I plan to translate, I'm working on that now, translate a few of these songs into both French and into Spanish, probably Portuguese in the future, because I work on that language as well. I minister in Brazil a lot. So I'm hoping to translate some of these into those 3 languages and re-record those and release those for those communities, because that's also a huge part of my heart, to be able to spread this message and spread the Spirit of the Lord in a new way into places that may not have as much access to these types of worship songs.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that. That's awesome. That's definitely something that we can all look forward to, seeing how that transpires and plays out. So you mentioned that you're going to continue working on more songs that are based on the Psalms. So does that mean that there could be a possible, like a part 2?
I'm really hoping so. And I know in my discussions with my producer, he really wants to do another one. So, and I think that's definitely something that'll come up in the future.
Oh, awesome. Well, we'll definitely be keeping an eye out for that. And I do want to say thank you so much for being a part of our Summer Music Sampler this year. We appreciate every artist that has been willing to contribute to it, and we're really blessed to have you as a part of it as well.
Oh, thank you so much. It's such an honor to be included on the Summer Sampler, and it's been such an honor getting to talk with you, Kelly.
All right. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today, Katy. And we look forward to everything that'll come up for you next.
Thank you so much.